Mike Naso here with a video update on Tropical Storm Chris. By the way, join Zach and I tonight on the Tropical Roundtable. We'll have coverage, phone lines will be open, AOL Instant Messenger will be open for questions, comments. We'll go over everything possible. I'm sure Mike Watkins and Matt Carrier and DT may even drop by, as this system is going to be making the headlines over the next week or so, and even beyond that, as it heads up west-northwestward towards the Florida coastline and the United States. But first, it has to plow through the Turks, Caicos, and the Bahamas. So this is going to be our concern. Notice how much bigger it's gotten since yesterday. That might be a reason why it has weakened slightly. Yes, winds are down to 60 miles per hour. It's moving west-northwest at 10 still, 1,005 millibars. Notice that 19.9, 64.3. That's almost parallel to the north coast of the Dominican. So the Dominican, you might get some rain as it passes to your north as a hurricane, probably, but it does not look like you will get an impact, which is good news for the island. I mean, I know mudslides, I mean, Hurricane Dennis last year passed to the south, and I think it killed 80 people in Haiti or something like that. I mean, man, that's bad. But nevertheless, it could cause some problems as it moves to your north. Cuba, not out of the woods. And I agree with the Hurricane Center on this track, by the way, but not out of the woods, northeast and northern coast of Cuba. Very possible you'll get at least some heavy rain from it, depending on which way it's angled. For example, if it's lopsided, you might get more rain. If it's symmetric, you might get less. Who knows what it'll be by then. Here is the visible satellite image, center sitting right about in this area here. So you've still got a little bit of lopside to it, but you know, it's having to deal with some dry air and some mid-level wind shear, and we're going to talk about that pretty soon. You can see, first of all, there's the dry air starting to cut off that dry air. The moisture is growing, the dry air is lessening, and you can see all the dry air behind it, but that's not going to be a problem. Notice this little feature right here, this little curly Q right here, this is probably an upper level low developing, and when Chris gets here, this could very well help ventilate it a little bit for at least some modest intensification before the Bahamas. So that's going to be probably the only intensification that we'd see, that we'd really have to be concerned about, maybe some more deepening before the Bahamas. You can see here, will the ridge hold? That is the big question right now. Will the ridge hold, or will it slacken a bit and cause Chris to kind of move more towards southern Florida? Or will it hold strong enough, like I think and the Hurricane Center thinks, to skirt it along the coast? Probably right in the middle, probably somewhere in here, which is why the Florida Keys, I guarantee if this thing holds its track, they're going to have to start evacuations. But that's a little bit down the line. Upper level low, retrograding west. This is going to subside. Any northwest flow that's currently undercutting the storm is going to subside. And it's going to be in a favorable environment once it gets to here. So it could become a hurricane before the Turks and Caicos Islands. Here's another look at it. These are my thoughts on it. Again, I'm not that far away from the Hurricane Center. I think that a west-northwest track like this, potentially towards the Florida Keys, is what we're going to see. And I think it'll be more towards the Keys because I think it will strengthen and move more poleward as it does so, as we saw yesterday. I mean, yesterday it was down here and it kind of moved like this because it strengthened so much. And that probably was a bad thing because if it hadn't strengthened, it would have just kind of pulled like this and weakened. Anyway, I think it'll be here by, say, Sunday night, Monday morning, moving through the Keys, potentially as a strengthening hurricane similar to Rita, you know, somewhere around 85, wrapping up as it moves south or over the Keys. At least that's what we hope. Although it may be weaker. Keep in mind, it doesn't matter how strong it is here, because you remember TD10 was nothing here, and then it was able to merge with another system and become TD12 right here, and a hurricane right here. I mean, it does not take much if they're in the right environment. It doesn't take much space at all. So right now, the fact that it is 60 miles an hour right now is bad. It's very bad. Even if it were 50, 40, 30 miles an hour, I'd still be concerned about what happens when it's in the Gulf. But I'm much more worried that it could be much more serious because it's at the intensity it is now. By the way, if it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, the general track thinking, I think, would be towards the Texas coastline. If you have the ridge in place, kind of have that track swirling, but you don't know if the ridge would weaken, and then you'd have, you know, some pooling northward. It's just too early for that at this point. You can see where the center is, though. Thank you, MapQuest Lat Long. There's where the center is. Remember Hurricane Debbie I was comparing it to? Debbie was down here in 2000, and moved like this and just got torn apart and died. And it was moving at like 25 miles an hour and had a lot of westerly shear. This one's far enough to the north to where even if it did move like that, it would still head into the Turks and Caicos and be well north of the Dominican. So the Dominican is safe for this time, but the Turks and Caicos will probably have to deal with a hurricane. So begin getting your hurricane preparations ready. Here's the mid-level shear tendency map, and you can see the flow with this is generally towards the east, which is in front of the tropical cyclone, and as it moves this way you can see it kind of lessens a little bit. And then you can see on the general shear tendency, you're going, well, Mike, what's going on here? Yeah, I mean, I know this is favorable, some strengthening into a hurricane, but what about this? Well, this is associated with the upper level low, and this is retrograding west. So this will be out of the picture, and the Gulf will be favorable by the time it gets there. So I'm pretty much thinking that by the time the Gulf gets there, it might be, as my good friend Matt Carrier said, ready to pop. So we're gonna really have to keep an eye on this. Divergence, good divergence, upper level divergence over the system. So again, not all that bad conditions. You can see the radar here out of Puerto Rico, out of San Juan, the Long Range, and looking interesting there. Not seeing anything that you might call an eye anymore. Last night we sort of saw an eye wall, but you can see it tightening up right in there. Here's the track guidance, shifted way north, way north, way north. You know, remember earlier today and yesterday they were all down here, now they're all up here. So I think the Hurricane Center was on. I agree with them, and I think the models are starting to agree that Chris means business for South Florida and the Keys and the north coast of Cuba over the next several days. So again, a general west-northwest track like this. Tropical wave moving off Africa could very well become a Cape Verde hurricane over the next few days. Keep an eye on that. We also have Tropical Depression Gilma weakening. It should head this way. And Tropical Storm Fabio should head this way and weaken. And then finally in the Western Pacific we have Typhoon Prapi-Roon. Could become a Category 2 typhoon before slamming into Nam. There it is on the satellite, looking pretty good. Maybe some dry air in its northern quadrant. I'm Mike Naso. Stay tuned tonight in the Tropical Roundtable. Spread the word. We'll be on with a lot of content, a lot of opinions, and you don't want to miss it.